All right, hello everyone and welcome to the first Seeds chapter call of 2023. And this one specifically, we'll be focusing on how to apply for field experiences. We're kind of in the middle of application season for a lot of our undergraduate research experiences. And yeah, we'll take a little deep dive about that, specifically shameless plugs to Seeds opportunities that are in the horizon. So first and foremost, I would like to just start with introductions. I am Fred Abbott, and I'm the Diversity Program Manager at the Ecological Society of America, where I get to run a really cool program called SEEDS, where its mission is to increase minority representation within the fields of ecology in its profession. And so we do that through developing and organizing experiences for undergraduate students that are fully funded. And we'll dabble a little bit more into that. But yeah, these are the check-in for our Seeds chapters. So who else is on the call? I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I can't see the Zoom stuff. Hello. Hi. Sandra, you want to go ahead since the students are kind of shy?
Sure. I'm Sandra Del Rio, a professional programs coordinator, and I handle a lot of things related to Seeds chapters specifically. So yeah, welcome. And I'll popcorn it to Shay because you're next to me and you're the first one who joined. Ha.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Shay, and I am an ecology and evolutionary biology major at the University of Texas at El Paso. I am a senior, and I have gone to 2 national field trips with ESA Seeds, and yeah, it's pretty fun.
Hi, I'm Kayla. I'm a senior biology major at Duquesne University, and I'm president of the Ecology Club here, and we're affiliated with Seeds chapter and stuff. So,
hi, my name is Isabel. I'm a natural resource management major at UC Berkeley. I saw that Seeds posted this on Instagram, and I don't really know entirely what Seeds encompasses, but what I've learned so far has intrigued me.
Cool. And welcome. It's good to see that the social media posts are working. Hey. So we're going to take a deeper dive into exactly what is, a field experience. So let me go back to sharing my screen. So exploring field-based science experiences is important for several reasons, including the ability to offer students hands-on skills in careers and fields that are interesting to them. It offers you the opportunity to learn about the profession and the culture of your science field. So for research-focused experiences, learning how to apply the scientific method and overcome hurdles of collecting data are key. So skills like teamwork, time management, budget, deadlines, identifying deliverables, meeting new goals, adapting to new environments, all translate to life skills learned from these experiences. So in science fields, we normally call these either field trips, internships, fellowships. They're also referred to as RU, or research experience for undergrad, and in some cases, even research assistants at universities or other institutions. So Sandra, we're going to do a shameless plug here. You want to talk a little bit about the grants?
Sure. One of the things like Seeds offers specifically for Seeds chapters are the Seeds chapter grants. We are actually reopening them for the spring season, officially reopening tomorrow. And so these are awards of up to $1,000 for individual chapter projects. They can range from field trips, like Fred was mentioning, to different projects. But if they're done within just one Seeds chapter, it caps at the ask for funding caps at $1,000. However, if you want to do a collaborative event or a collaborative project, meaning with another SEEDS chapter or more than one SEEDS chapter, say 3 or more, or it can be 2. Again, a field trip or a camping trip, perhaps a research presentation. So you can actually ask for up to $5,000. Okay, so again, just another opportunity out there for SEEDS chapters. And yeah, it starts, applications reopen tomorrow. So yep.
Yeah, we posted a little bit of ads throughout this presentation. So that's what SEEDS chapter grants. Again, they're opening up tomorrow, and $1,000 for individual chapters, $5,000 for multiple chapters collaborating on the same project. So we're actually aiming for people to go for the $5,000 grants. All right, so back to, benefits of applying for field experiences. Well, some of those benefits include an opportunity to explore the impact of our science and, of course, our data. That's especially important if you're undecided as to which field of science you're actually interested in. The chance to develop and practice skills outside of the classroom. Again, lab settings are incredibly important to teach lab-like science skills, but at the same time, real-world implementation of those for ecology mostly happens in these field-based experiences. So it's sometimes a needed extracurricular activity to have a successful career in science, and you providing the ability to apply the scientific method. And especially if you're interested in the next steps in a career in science, which for some of you might be interested in graduate school, it's incredibly important to have, the scientific method application in some sort of way in your resume or in your CV when applying for those graduate programs. I, again, don't know of a single undergraduate student that has been able to go into the next step of graduate school without being able to apply that. So extracurriculars is important. There's also financial compensation while learning, which is incredibly important. Paid internships are abundant in sciences, and free travel experiences, like, for example, some of our SEEDS field trips are great ways to get into the sciences without actually having to, inquire into any expenses. So the ability to build relationships and networks with peers and professionals in your field of interest is also incredibly important. To meet new friends and people with similar interests, especially if you happen to have a chance to participate in SEEDS and part of our SEEDS family. And then, of course, there's the opportunity to travel, to live, to explore different ecosystems and organisms. So, there is a lot of opportunities out there at a global scale for ecologists. We're known as a science that does travel a lot, to be able to explore, again, unique ecosystems and organisms. So here are 6 tips to keep in mind when applying to these opportunities. So step number 1, and I know we have a few seniors on the call, but that is to start applying early. And I don't mean this in like the chronological order of deadlines. I actually mean this in your career. So as soon as you enroll in college, that first summer, you should start practicing applying for these experiences. So many students pursue these opportunities during your junior and senior years of school. However, it's never too early to begin applying and participating in these field-based programs. So most field-based programs that I know of don't require prerequisite courses unless they're attached to an academic institutions. Plus, obtaining these field trips early on for these field experiences can actually boost your chances of obtaining more elite experiences later on in your senior years. So multiple experiences in varying ecosystems will also be make you an excellent candidate for graduate school and early career options. So think about that when applying. You can try different things for different summers throughout your undergraduate degree. So be familiar and organized with the requirements of deadlines. Now, this has to do with the chronological order. So programs will have very strict deadlines, and while others might not, larger programs that offer several opportunities tend to have a structured process in which they recruit and hire students and often complete the program in a short amount of time. Or on the other hand, smaller labs or field station actually tend to be a little bit more flexible with the recruiting option and the positions that they offer. Knowing the details of the recruiting process for each of these programs is really important, in which like you don't want to prevent you from missing out on any of those important deadlines or requirements. Third tip is to get your documents ready. And this is whether it be your statement, resume, CV, letters of recommendation, etc. But your resume actually plays a pretty vital role in where you get considered for these experiences. Take the time to ensure it's up to date and as professional as possible, and includes a lot of those extracurricular activities, whether you attended a seminar or you attended a poster presentation. Don't forget to add those to your CV. Actually makes a big difference. So be sure to include any relevant experiences and coursework that will help you set you apart from other candidates. And you should also consider having someone else look at your resume for either grammar, spelling, or other issues that you might have missed. I'm bilingual, so it happens to me all the time. So nothing about pride, just to make sure that what you're putting out there is at the very best. So another really important step is to network whenever possible. In sciences specifically, it's kind of a challenge because although I will show you resources towards the end of the presentation, I will say that it's hard to be able to find those resources. And so networking, meeting professionals, meeting, professors or graduate students that have applied to other experiences, they'll let you know about what they participated in or what's available out there. So networking is incredibly important. These networking events are usually either held on campus or the first semester of the year. Academic institutions actually offer these. So make the most out of these events and meet as many people as possible. Try to stay connected with them, whether you're in their career field or not. You never know where that network could take you. Another important tip number 5 is to follow the application directions closely. Different applications will have different requirements, specifically in sciences where there might be more minimum requirements for some than others. And so, for example, one application might require your examples of your work or submitting other processes. So be careful to review the application directions and include all the requested information and documents when submitting the application. Another important pet peeve is somebody that gets to go through a lot of these applications is make sure that you submit them in the format that they ask them for. So for example, pay attention if it says PDF or anything like that. It just makes it easier for us to be able to manage that large amount of data. That's just an example. So this can aid, when following the instructions throughout the application process. And then another one that's incredibly important and most important of all is once you get through the application process is actually preparing for that interview. And then the tip that I always give students and anyone is never turn an interview down. It's just a great practice professionally to go through the process. So when you receive, an opportunity to go to an interview, you should go in as prepared as possible. Do your research on the lab, the station, the supervisor. Come up with several reasons as to why you're the ideal candidate for the position. Have those in your back pocket. Dress appropriately. Ecology is very casual, but for some of these experiences, actually, you do want to dress to impress and going a little above and beyond to show a lot about how much you want this experience. So the more you plan for the interview, the more prepared you will be and the more professional you will appear. Also, bring your own questions about what to expect from the experience. So for example, these are remote locations, who will you be working with? What's the access to communications? In what conditions will you be working with? What are the housing and transportation needs for that? Are my, food requirements going to be met? So all these are important questions to ask during that interview process. You don't want to find out, that you're going to be 4 hours away from the nearest movie theater if you really enjoy the movies on the weekends, et cetera, et cetera. So important questions will have make sure that you have a way more pleasurable experiences while you're there and avoid any surprises. So here are a few things that we want to talk about. But first, here's another announcement. We currently have applications open for students to apply to join us in Michigan at the Kellogg Biological Station for one of our SEEDS national field trips. The application deadline is February 17th. Yes, that is 9 days away, but our application process is actually very simple. Students are required to be enrolled in a U.S. institution. That is the only basic requirement. And then we don't even require letters of recommendation. So it really is based off of students' statement of interest and how this experience can be life transforming for them. So if you're interested in finding out more about this, all the information is on our website, and we'll post the links also towards the end of the chat. Announcement over. So here are a few things that you actually want to avoid during the application process, is actually waiting until the very last minute to apply. I know that deadlines are important and you want to meet that deadline, but if you can get the application as soon as possible, it actually lets the program know how interested you really are and how prepared. They got it in early, they got it in on time, everything was in accordance to, the requirements. So the selection process can be fairly competitive for big opportunities, and so waiting till the last minute to submit your application might decrease your chances of being considered. Consider any last minute delays, connection problems, or even time zone changes. Sometimes it says midnight. In the case for us, it always midnight, set it across time zones. But for some of these opportunities, especially from our organization here at ESA, a lot of our deadlines are actually going to be on Eastern time. So pay attention to that. It really is gut wrenching. Like really want something, but because you left it to the last minute, you missed out on a great opportunity. Sometimes you really want to avoid submitting generic applications. By this, I mean, it's important to cater your application to each of these opportunities individually. Include only the relevant details and personalize them to match the requirements for the specific internships that you're applying for, especially in your personal statement or your essay. Another thing that you really want to avoid is minimizing your chances of being selected for these opportunities. So applying for a small number of opportunities, the more experiences you apply for, the more chances you will have to finding one. Limiting yourself by applying to only a few of these experiences may result in actually not getting in at all. Also, the more you practice and the easier this process will get. So you might find yourself in multiple options. Say you get better at it, and you might find yourself with multiple options for that summer or for that semester. And so you get to pick which ones will actually fit you best after those interview process. Having a ranking systems for your own guidance is a great tool to keep as well. So knowing this is my number 1, number 2, number 3, option number 5. So another important thing that I need to talk about is the fact of keeping unprofessional posts up on social media, especially nowadays. It's really easy for programs, specifically if you're, the last of the selection process, it's very competitive and they're between, a handful of students. Going on social media, researching a little bit of the person beforehand is actually part of some of these application review committees. And so making sure, that it's important to review your social media and delete or hide anything that doesn't portray you, in a professional, responsible light when applying for opportunities. So keep that in mind as well. Now, I promised that we would talk a little bit about resources, and this is kind of if you get a chance, you can take a screenshot, but we will be posting these as well. So a few of the resources that we quickly compiled, and a lot of them are incredibly important. So first on the list, for example, is National Science Foundation's Research Experience for Undergraduates. That is actually a website that has hundreds of experiences for exactly that. Hands-on experiences for undergraduates to explore science fields, everything from atmospheric sciences through earth sciences, through basically STEM, even STEM education is in there. So that website is incredibly important. I'm going to click here quickly on the link. I don't know if it'll show up on my screen. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I'm going to show you something here real quick. So say, for example, in ecology and earth sciences, you want to click on that, and then you get a list. You can download this through CVS, Excel, or XML. So super easy. And then each of these experiences, each of these links, will take them to these unique experiences and application process requirements and so forth. So it's a great resource to keep in mind. If you Google these by name, it should be fairly simple to find. Another program that's really important, and I didn't put SEEDS on the list because I'm assuming that because you're here, you know a little bit about us, but we do have other programs that we collaborate with, and the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program is one of those. It is a great experience for students I'm just going to go through super quickly and I'll send you the list. Another program that's really important and great for resume builders, specifically for students with interest in pursuing careers within the federal agencies, is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Directorate Fellowship Program. So the program allows you to work at one of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife sites. Not only that, but once you graduate, or once you finish the program, sorry, you are on a direct hire authority. So it's direct hire authority just is lingo for federal programs. Basically, you're on a list that where you would get selected from before the opportunity would be open for the general public. So the likelihood of being placed in federal positions is a lot higher for those that are in the direct hire authority list. Another program that talks about direct hire authority, for example, is our National Park Service Scientists and Parks program. This program is actually run by the Ecological Society of America. And so it is a really cool experience to be able to be placed and work specifically in science research experiences at national park sites across the US. Another important resource for students is SOARS. So SOARS is significant opportunities in atmospheric research and science. They offer a bunch of other programs as well. So their website is incredibly important to check out. The other and kind of the biggest job board within, the natural resources and ecology realm is the Texas Tech Natural Resources job board. This has a whole bunch of opportunities, not only for undergraduate students, but also for graduates, early career jobs, whether it's in academia or state natural resources department. There are thousands of opportunities posted there. Another link that is really important for students to have and actually includes a lot of these resources is the Stanford Resources for Students. This was put together a few years ago, but one of our SEEDS alumni, Jorge Ramos, just going to take you to the website real quickly. That is not it. Sorry. I guess I wrote the wrong link. All right, I had it here. So this is the Natural Resources Job Board. Again, it hosts experiences from, again, early career through mid, and senior ecologists. So just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of posts there. And then the website that I really want you to check out is, and talks a lot about these opportunities, is the Resources for Students from Stanford Jasper Ridge. So it has a whole list of summer research programs and internships, finding, all career stages and organizations and societies that work with that, funding for graduate students. And so, yeah, it's a great, great website to be able to check out. So quickly go back to the presentation. Cool. Okay. And last but not least, but also important, is to follow some of these programs on their social media platforms. I know for SEEDS, we're constantly posting these experiences. For those that are open for applications, again, the only requirement to participate in SEEDS is to be enrolled in a U.S. institution as an undergraduate. So following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter is the easiest way to find these programs. And also find those that follow us and keep growing that network on social media. Sorry, I had to take a water break there. But here's another cool experience that we're offering currently. We're seeking applicants to participate at the 108th ESA annual meeting. This meeting is going to happen on August 6th through the 11th in Portland, Oregon. And again, SEEDS covers all of your expenses to participate in the meeting, including your registration, airfare, hotel, meal stipends, an ESA meeting mentor, SEEDS alumni, and of course, a bunch of SEEDS events happening there. So if you have any questions about those applications, we will take them now.
Yeah, I have a question. So it said that I reviewed the website and it said that it was priority given to students that want to present at the ESA meeting. Would it still be fine to apply if you're not doing research at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the full benefit of coming to ESA is to be able to present your research and participate in the meeting in that fashion. But no, not all the student participants are presenting. It's not a requirement.
For the national field trip application, for the reference, what kind of person like should I put down for my reference?
Who knows you the best? Who can talk about you? So in our case, for our system, we ask for a reference again for those students that like would be at the very bottom of the evaluation list, which are the hardest students to pick from. So your students get sent out to evaluations, they come back, you know, you have a list of candidates that have been ranked by that application committee or that selection committee.
Mhm.
So usually the students that you struggle with most are going to be the students at the bottom of that list, like who gets the cut. So that is where recommendations come in, at least for a lot of programs, right? Like if you have a great candidate that has all the evidence in their CV, their statements, like they're solid, you might not have to contact a reference. So the reference are going to be for the students that you're struggling to with the most. And so you want to be able to talk like, again, somebody that knows you, whether it be work related or not, a supervisor from a sports team, you know, like an old coach, somebody that worked with you in retail. It doesn't have to be science. So these people that might know you better, like are better to talk about your abilities, some of your, you know, your strengths and your weaknesses. So sometimes, and this happens a lot, and I see this a lot in our applications, students might write to applications that think like, oh, it's ESA. Let me just put the only like ecology professor that's in my department. I took a course with them. I did pretty good. They waved at me in the hallway. Like they'll write me a great letter of recommendation. And that is not always the case. As a person that gets to review a lot of these, you would be appalled at like professors sending just 5 sentences of this student took this course with me and they have an A. So like, I highly recommend them for this experience. And that is it. That is all they write. When in reality, I want somebody that can talk about your motivations and your passions. Like, you know, how was your experience, you know, with them? How did they know you? How long do they know you? A lot of those questions are usually in letters of recommendation. So I prefer
Okay.
write somebody that knows you. Short answer.
Thank you.
Right, I actually placed it on the chat, but I wanted to piggyback off, is it Jordan or I'm butchering your name, I'm so sorry.
It's Jordan. It's okay.
Jordan, okay, I'm gonna piggyback off of Jordan's question. Should it be, like, can it be, should it be, would you recommend those recommenders to be family members?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I've worked with family before. I won't say that I would put them on my professional recommendation, especially like stuff like that. But for example, you might have family that is in the field and you might have access to that privilege way before any person. And if you have somebody that, you know, was either a lead in the Boy Scouts or again, other things that are related to our science, especially for field experiences, you might want to add that. You know, that's not something that you would shy away from those experiences. You know, I wanted back in, you know, when I was in college, I went to college because I wanted to be a vet, but I got to work with my cousin who was a vet and like had a clinic. I would list him as a reference, but because I worked with him professionally. So that's kind of my train of thought on that. Does anybody have any questions? Sheila, you've applied for some experiences. Like, what are your thoughts about, does it get easier as you know, practice it more?
Does what get easier, like ecology or anything?
Applications.
Applications.
Like,
So
you've been selected for a few experiences related to seeds and not seeds.
yes. Actually, I would like to go a little bit on a tangent just because like I didn't know what I was doing before I went to the first seeds field trip. And then after I joined, I was like, yes, ecology, this is where it's at. And then I went to the Hubbard Brook field trip, and I was like, yep, I want to do soil. So you start like forming like a tower of like your interests of like, yes, this is what I like. And you start building off of that. And so going to field trips and even just experiences like on campus, like, you know, volunteering at sibling events and stuff like that, I feel like it helps a lot towards what it is that you want to do and what you like. And yeah, so I guess it does get easier because yeah, like writing what interests you, and making connections and talking to people and finding out what you truly like, it helps a lot.
Yeah, I gotta say, for me as an undergraduate, I was fortunate enough to go into a lab where my mentor required me to apply for opportunities outside of campus. And so, you know, if he found out about anything that would be cool, whether for me it was, you know, Haku or some research project, or again, an internship that I did with Fish and Wildlife, those were required to be like in his lab. He wanted us to gain that experience and to practice writing, which is incredibly important in science, whether it be, again, a personal statement or just listing your accomplishments, which science very much still enjoys. So some of the things that are, you know, to think about when, you know, these opportunities come by is, again, looking at those minimum requirements. It's one of those things that professionally we're trying to change and make it more accessible for people, you know, especially with GPAs and, you know, having a 3.5 minimum requirement to get that experience. That limits, you know, the students that get to participate. And it's not very inclusive as we want our science to be. And we know that a lot of great scientists that have extremely creative minds might not fall within the professional academic setting of being, you know, great in the classroom. So some of those things to consider, again, when looking at these experiences. When going through, again, finding out, like, look at, like, ask questions about what areas, you know, you will be visiting. You know, is it safe? Like, feel free to ask some questions about it, what it really is to be the experiences. And that might not mean a lot to some of you, but especially if you're a minority student, going to remote locations can press a challenge still to this day. And so having those conversations with those that are there to host you, make sure that you're safe and have a great experience, should happen way ahead of time before you know, get on a plane or step foot at that site. Sandra, what about your experiences?
My experiences as an undergrad, or
Yeah,
working
internships and yeah.
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure. I
I
mean, with field experiences, I kind of default to like actually being in the field and like doing like basically research in the field. Because I don't feel like my internships, one of them was at a lab, but I wouldn't consider it like a field experience. But it was just literally my stepping my foot on these internships was literally by approaching a professor. It was a new professor, and I thought the research this professor was doing was different, was interesting. I was unsure about my academic decision at that time. I saw everybody working in a lab, mostly dealing with animals and corals, which are animals, but yeah, like mostly marine biology based. And I did not picture myself doing that. So when this professor arrived and he worked with biofuels, I was like, well, that's different. And that has like a social aspect to that. I'm interested in that. And I literally went to a seminar, and And after his presentation, I approached him and I said, I want to work in your lab. And he didn't have a lab. I don't think he ever even got a lab set up. But he did know different internship opportunities, and he encouraged me and to apply to one of them. And the first one was in Colorado, in Golden, Colorado, at the National Renewable Energy Lab. And I did it, and I realized that I did not see myself doing that for 30 years. But hey, I got to go to Colorado. I got the experience. I met a lot of people, and to this day, I still stay in touch with, including that professor. And even then, I went to another internship that was in DC, and it was completely different from working in a lab. It was literally working in a government office. And then I realized, this is more like my vibe. So you never know what doors these things can open. You just have to be like one of the points that Fred made in the presentation was like, just keep your options open, right? Don't reject anything, because the worst thing that can happen is that you apply and then you don't hear back, or you get like, no, try again next time. But you can get so many yes, and even just one is, again, may open even more opportunities in a not so distant future. So that's my experience. But yeah, I'm curious to hearing you, Fred. Like, what would you say has been your most valuable field experience?
I would say my first. I applied to a lot of them early on. So my first internship, I was 19, and I got to spend the summer in Missouri. And it was just the first time of leaving Puerto Rico, which is where I grew up and where I've lived at that point my entire life. And so being able to go to like rural Missouri and gain a new perspective on life and opportunities and privilege. And I will say this, the craziest thing about that experience was that a lot of the things that I was doing, I really didn't understand the meaning behind that or what the impact of that data was. As an intern, I was the grunt, right? So I was told to like go to the hardest places. I was, in full field getup, spraying invasive species, which again, I had no idea how big of an impact I was like working with. Monitoring wildlife, whether it be eagle nest or wood ducks or like, banding birds for the first time. There's just a whole bunch of experiences that happened all within a short amount of time. And honestly, like it took me years to be able to, understand what that meant. And classes all throughout my senior year in college, I was like, oh, that's why the biologist wanted me to do that, or that's why we measure these samples in water. And so that was incredibly transformative. But also, like, I was participated in seeds. So going on a seeds field trip and exploring ecosystems, I did that twice to Santa Barbara. I went to another field trip to Alaska. I worked in a museum in Germany, in Dresden, because my research in Puerto Rico kind of took me to these two nerdy scientists that were the only two Germans that worked with like a specific category of insects that I stumbled upon. And so it allowed me to create a broad network. And again, just easier. With more experiences came just easier, the aspect of being able to travel, to do it all by myself, to be able to manage, whether it be a per diem or just my budget in general. Again, very much transformative skills that like it took a while to process and understand that, those are very, very important to gather in my undergraduate experience. That prepped me a lot to work with challenges in graduate school as well. So pretty important. And again, to be able to have like different experiences, whether it be working with a graduate student and gaining field experience that way through friends and like people that are just a couple of years ahead of you that, got funding for field technicians. I did that for 2 years. That took me to incredible places in Puerto Rico, monitoring reptiles. Working with local agencies such as like, again, Natural Resources Department, being able to volunteer with their biologists and gaining experiences to work with endangered species. Yeah, I was very, very fortunate to be able to like dabble in a lot of different research projects, which then kind of casually serendipitously made me kind of fall into a position where I get to do that with students all over the US and keep exploring ecosystems in a very curious fashion for the first time. So I fell in love with that experience. I do internships all the time. Any questions? Some concerns that you might have about prepping?
I guess I have a question for just like general seeds program field trips, and then also specifically for the Missouri one that's coming up, or the Michigan.
Yeah.
What does, I mean, ecology is a very broad like science. Do these field trips tend to like do like a general ecology outlook, or does it kind of specify, like, is it specific to like fish ecology or like forestry or something along those lines?
Isabel, you're giving me a question that I can answer. Like, it'll take me a full day to have that conversation. But I will say this, that yes, like dabbling with multiple ecosystems and multiple research fields, and not only, again, it's important to talk about the experience of how to collect that data. But to me, in education and in science, it's important to think about the impact of that data. And that's when I was talking about, it's like some of these interested, it takes you a while to understand what actually happens with that data. So it's important for us to have that conversation at these field trips. So for example, whether it be in Michigan at the Kellogg Biological Station, talking about agricultural, food sciences, food services, you know, we have a global economy now around food, and like, what does the US represent that? What does the state of Michigan? So we talk about that. So social impacts, outreach, education, like all of that is encompassed in ecology. And yes, it is a very diverse science, and that's what our slogan is: a diverse science, like diverse people for a diverse science, because it involves everybody, and everybody should have a place at this table. And that's the whole mission of our program. So yeah, it's very much like, we're not going to focus, you know, there's lakes, there's wildlife, you know, there's agricultural, there's farm, there's literally farm that has been, you know, lands that have been farmed for other monoculture. So like a lot of these experiments on how we use our farmland come from these research stations. So it has a huge impact. You know, there's a dairy farm at KBS. Like, we're going to go see cows, you know, learn about dairy production and some of the best practices, not only for the animal, but also for the ecosystem. Like, we know the impact that cattle have on ecosystems, whether it be trampling, whether it be consumption, whatever it is. But, you know, if we can have a little bit of science backing those procedures, like, that's pretty cool. And these happens at these stations. So yes, KBS or LTER, which is long-term ecological research sites across the US, are pretty big field sites, and we do explore them quite often. So for example, coming up in fall, you know, we'll be opening applications to go to Konza Prairie, which is in Kansas. And again, you don't think about diverse ecology when you think about prairies and grasslands, but it turns out that it's an amazing place to study soil sciences and to study bison and range management, and how do we preserve these great plains that were created by giant herds of millions of bison trampling and eating everything along their path, yet that impact is no longer there. So what happens to these prairies as, you know, our era, the human era, like, continues? It's super interesting. Like, it's, I'll tell you this, like, it's crazy, but it is the most randomest and mundane of places that will surprise you the most when traveling to them and learning about them. So we try to go to cool places.
Thank you.
And I encourage you to apply. And again, we didn't talk about this, but I get to review a lot of applications, right? Managing a program. And for me, it's important to get to know the student. So if you ask me what the most important part of your application for Seeds would be, is definitely your personal statement. And again, share your story, where you're from, what piques your interest in our science, and how participating in this experience can be transformative for you. And that means a lot to us and like those who fund our program, because you'd be surprised that to me, and this is very different from other programs, this is where like we are different, but to me, it's more important about the return on my investment. So I would like to provide the opportunity for students that might not have opportunities in other programs. You know, if people ask me what the best success story for Seeds is a student that comes into the program with a very low GPA, because again, we don't require GPA, and then ends up getting into a graduate school program. And some of those times they end up being faculty at like institutions and end up in the academic track, which is the top 1% of our science. So it's incredibly, like, it's cool to be able to provide experiences like that. But do not take this lightly. Field experiences are incredibly important for careers in ecology. And again, being able to adapt to those quick changes and tough working conditions that come with working in nature. You know, a lot of sciences might have great PhD programs that work perfectly within a 4-year academic track, but nature does not work that way. So it is very, very few ecologists that end up doing PhDs in a 4-year track. It usually takes them up to double, if not more, to go through that process. So it's good to be able to like check off those things that are not going to motivate you, because when it comes to that time, if you really want to be in science and want to call yourself a scientist, the PhD is most definitely a requirement. And just know that you will be dedicating 6+ years of your life to studying that one thing that you're focusing on. So you better know how to take that, and you better be sure that you have the team and again, the experience of working with people that will be supported there for you in that process. So yeah, I guess with that, if nobody has any questions, we do have some chapter updates that I'd like to share, specifically other rounds of these chapter calls and check-ins that are going to happen this semester. And again, just ask a quick question. Isabel, I know that you are not part per se of like chapter leadership at Berkeley, right? Okay. But we do have a communication channel with chapter leaders. So if you're a chapter leader and you're not part of our Slack group, just please feel free to email Sandra and myself to be part of that. And this is where like we share a lot of the program components, and again, just these offerings. But following us on social media also is the best and easiest way to keep track of what we'll be hosting. I do want to share the screen here real quick once more, and it is the Slack group, but it kind of shows you what other workshops we'll be hosting for the semester. So this was the first on February 8th. How to apply for field experiences, but Sandra's leading one on science communication workshop on March 28th. We're going to have Earth Month and a BioBlitz celebration on April 25th, because we are going to host a virtual BioBlitz again competition amongst our Seeds chapters. And then we're going to have, of course, the end of the semester career panel, which is going to be super cool. Again, a diversity of career options for students, a lot of them being friends of the Seeds program. So it's just a really cool way to get to know people that you know that have been through your same process. So Seeds alum and a lot of our professional friends, will invite them for like a really cool career panel. So that's going to happen at the end of the semester. Again, chapter grants are going to open tomorrow. And then, yeah, we actually have the dates for the BioBlitz there. So it'll happen, you know, April 17th to the 21st. And then a quick reminder, because, well, we do have 2 field experiences open, or at least one field-based experience. The other one is a professional meeting. But the application deadline to apply for our Seeds National Field Trip is on February 17th. Again, the link you can find on all our social media platforms and our Seeds homepage. And then the later deadline is actually March 10th for our travel awards for either undergraduates or Seeds alum now in graduate school, to be able to participate at the ESA annual meeting. Again, for 108 years we've been doing this, and it's a really cool city of Portland, Oregon. We've been there a few times. We're very familiar with it, and so the support system is there in place to make sure that our students actually have a great experience while coming to the world's largest ecology meeting, which is a big deal and can be very overwhelming, but not if you're participating through Seeds. Are there any questions? Is everybody on the call cool with us like sharing this amongst the network? It just gets posted on YouTube, and then the link is accessed by those that have access to our Slack group. So we'll make you internet famous. Cool. Does anybody have any like last minute questions, or, you know, for me or Sandra about Seeds? All right. Well, thank you so much for all three of you taking the time tonight to join us on this call, but this will be shared broadly amongst the Seeds Network. So hopefully it has much bigger impact. But it was a pleasure to meet. Yeah,
question.
Shayla,
I'm so
go
sorry.
for it.
So I really want to do a career panel with our club for Women's Month, or another career panel in general. Do you have any emails that I can email?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll post something on the Seeds alumni group actually and see if it gains any traction from people. There are a lot of Seeds alum in Texas, so I'm pretty sure you can get somebody within your time zone that would be more than eager to participate. And all other thing is, ask the Elizabeths at Texas at El Paso and see if they're willing to help. Not only maybe one of them participating, but also recruiting some of their friends.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, I won't take up too much more of your time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Me and Sandra and the rest of the Seeds family are very appreciative of being able to host these for students. And I'm looking forward to get to know you guys a little bit better and hopefully seeing you in person at one of our field-based experiences. So thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.